This week in IT, Microsoft is bringing a Facebook-inspired storyline to Teams. The February cumulative update for Windows 11 brings new features to File Explorer and the taskbar, and government users in Australia think that Copilot isn't quite what they'd hoped for. So stay tuned for all the latest news. Welcome to This Week in IT, the show where I talk about everything connected to Microsoft 365, Windows, and Azure. But before I get started today, I've got a quick favor to ask you. 50% of the people who watched last week's video weren't subscribed to the channel. Now, as we go live today, we're on about 11,100 subscribers, and I'd love it if we could push that up to 11,150 this week. So if you'd like to see these weekly news roundups from petri.com, then please subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit the bell notification to make sure that you don't miss out on the latest uploads. This isn't the first time that Microsoft has mentioned a storyline feature that's coming to Microsoft Teams, but this week Microsoft has said that it's going to be generally available very soon, and we've got a video now that shows a little bit about how it's going to work. Now, to be honest, I get what a Facebook-inspired storyline is. I'm a little bit confused about the implementation of it because we don't have a timeline really in Teams, so I'm not quite sure how we're going to see these updates that users are adding to their own storylines, apart from through various notifications that we might get, or going to the activity section, which is apparently where you're going to be able to see those updates. So much like Facebook or LinkedIn, users will have their own storyline where they can post updates, they can share things that they are working on, that kind of thing, and you'll be able to access these storylines in the one-to-one chats that you have with other users. Now, the idea behind this is for enhanced communication in organizations. So Microsoft is saying that this is going to allow leaders to more easily share news and for other users to be able to share what it is they're working on and any updates that they have. Now, apparently there's a similar tool in Viva Engage, and this tool that's coming to everybody in Microsoft Teams is going to be built on top of that. So something similar to what we have in Engage right now. This is going to be something that everybody gets in Teams, but probably a little bit more developed. So there are going to be three places where you can access Storyline. So the first is Storyline notifications, which you'll be able to get to under the activity section in Teams. And as I said before, you can access colleagues' Storyline pages from the one-on-one chats. There will also be a dedicated tab for Storyline in personal chats. Again, some kind of timeline where you can see all of these updates in whether it be chronological order or in some algorithm decided order. Doesn't seem to really exist at this stage. Maybe it's something that Microsoft plans to bring to Teams in the future, but this feature does seem a little bit odd without it, to be honest. If you have a Viva Engage premium license, you'll be able to get analytics on these storylines, and leaders will be able to delegate to other people to post on their behalf. This is becoming generally available for commercial customers next month. It's going to be enabled by default, but IT administrators will be able to configure it for their end users. Again, this is a very odd implementation, I think, the way Microsoft is approaching this storyline idea. Well, it would be great in principle if we had that combined timeline that you get in LinkedIn and Facebook. You open those applications and that's what you see straight away. That, of course, is not what you see in an application like Teams, and I really don't quite get the point of this unless we have that kind of timeline feature be in the default view. Let's see whether Microsoft plans to bring something like that to the table in the future. This week was Patch Tuesday, and Microsoft fixed 2 days as part of the security updates that get bundled up into that cumulative update. But as is very common, Microsoft has also added some new features to Windows 11 as part of the monthly update. Now, some of those features are really just not features, but more fixes. And if you're on Windows 11 24H2, there have been a whole load of problems connected to that update, and Microsoft has fixed some of the issues that were connected to problems with the mouse and stuttering under certain conditions and the mouse pointer disappearing. Those issues, at least according to Microsoft, have been fixed in this update. So if you were suffering from those, then you'll be glad to hear this update is something that you should get installed as quickly as possible. But there were also some other interesting features that Microsoft added. So one of them is the Windows Studio effects. If you have one of those Copilot Plus PCs, which we've talked about a lot on this channel, or a PC that has a neural processing unit, even if it's not a Copilot Plus PC, you probably have access to Windows Studio effects. So this basically is a set of software features that does things like live translation, blur in the background, but with the help of the neural processing unit. So things like, backgrounds and blur backgrounds in Teams, you will probably be aware that if you don't have Windows Studio effects, you can do those things, but it really drains the CPU. And if you're or maybe it's the GPU that it's using to do those things, and if you have a notebook and a battery and you enable those things, well, your battery life is going to go plummet really quickly. So these studio effects are designed to really optimize those features that we already have in Teams and add some other things that we don't. I think like the live translation thing, I'm not sure that we have access to that in Teams if you don't have an NPU. I could be wrong about that. You put that in the comments below. I think I am probably wrong about that. I'm pretty sure that I've seen it in Skype. But, if you've got an NPU, then, this stuff is all going to work much more efficiently. Now, what Microsoft has done in this update, if any of those studio effects are in use, you now get an icon in the system tray to show that that is actually happening. And I think that's a welcome addition. There have been a couple of changes to the taskbar. Now, Microsoft hasn't really elaborated very much on what the changes, exactly the details of the changes, but they've essentially said that the previews that you get for applications when you hover over, an application that's in the taskbar that's running actively at the moment have improved. I'm not sure what that means exactly. And they've also said that they've improved the animations connected to those previews. I'm not sure what that means exactly either, because at least on my PC, I don't really see any animations connected to those taskbar previews. They just appear. I don't know. So if you know anything more about that, I'd love to know in the comments below. There have also been a whole load of minor improvements to File Explorer. So when you right-click items now in the left pane, you also get the option to create a new folder. If you have multiple tabs open in File Explorer, when you restart File Explorer, or I guess as well if your device restarts, all those tabs should reopen, providing that you have the Restore Previous Folder Windows at Logon option enabled. Microsoft is also saying that with this update, there are certain useful settings that are now going to be enabled by default. For instance, restarting restartable apps when the device restarts automatically is apparently now going to be enabled by default. I thought it was already enabled by default. I don't ever remember enabling this on a device. Always just seems to happen on my devices. But, Microsoft comes up with these things. This is new. Do we believe them? I don't know. I'm not following all these minor changes in a lot of detail, but apparently it's there. Another thing that I just kind of assumed was there in the settings app, Microsoft is now saying that you'll be able to change the time zone. It's like, okay. And you don't need administrator permissions to change the time zone. And again, I don't know, was that not there? I'm pretty sure that it was there, but Microsoft is saying, no, it's new. I don't know, haven't fact checked it, but it's really important to be able to allow users, especially standard users that don't have administrator permissions, to be able to change the time zone, as they're, if they're traveling around the world, or, if you're in a big country like the US, then obviously potentially between different states as well. So, yep, that apparently now is available in settings. I would really have loved to kind of, give the video a title, Copilot is completely useless. But, it's not completely useless, of course. I use it at work. It, has lots of really great uses, I think. A report has come out this week from a government department, I believe, or I think it was a particular department. I think it was the Treasury in Australia, and they trialed Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365 with 218 users, and they've published their findings about what happened. So basically, users, overall were a little bit disappointed with the Copilot experience in Microsoft 365 and felt that it was considerably less useful than they had expected it to be. And the reason, they say, well, it actually supported fewer workloads than they thought it would be able to support. So, you're probably aware, if you've used Copilot, it's attached to particular Microsoft applications and services. So, the result of this survey, or the conclusion probably I should say for this survey, is that if you're going to trial Copilot, then you need to put in a lot of education, how to use it. You need to trial it with the right users. Interestingly, from this report, they said that they thought Copilot was especially useful for part-time staff and for neurodivergent people. They didn't really expand on why very much, but I could imagine for part-time staff who are coming in, who need to catch up on things really quickly, then Copilot gives them a way to really quickly find the information that they're looking for, and not just find it, but summarize it in a way that they can get up to speed really quickly. And maybe for neurodivergent people, that's also useful because it just helps to organize things, without you having to manually organize lots of information yourself. So at the end of the day, what I could really glean from this is that Copilot was used less than they thought it was going to be used. So again, that could be an awareness training issue among those users. You've got to pick the right users and make sure they can understand what it can do and how it does it. But they did say something interesting, which was, well, if users were able to work with Copilot, they could just save maybe 30 minutes of work time a week. It pays for itself. So, does it? I mean, it's pretty pricey. So, they're saying, well, just 13 minutes. If this saves you just 13 minutes, well, yeah, I don't know. So, from my point of view, I think it's not just about time. I think what Copilot really helps with is lowering frustration levels. So it might just save me, I don't know, 13, 15, 20 minutes a week. But what it really does is help me just to get on with what it is that I'm doing. I don't get frustrated. Oh, where is that piece of information? I need to read this huge document to establish, is it even worth reading? If I can summarize it, okay, well, here's the summary. I can ask more detailed questions. And I think it just really helps to lower stress levels. It's a great stress management tool as well, and that just gives me more energy to be productive in other areas. So I think this shouldn't be measured in just how much time it saves you, but also it's a really difficult thing to measure, how it actually helps you to be more productive in other ways potentially. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the new storyline feature in Teams. Is it just a gimmick, or is it something that you think would be genuinely useful? I'm going to leave you with another video on the screen now about Microsoft getting rid of its VPN feature in Microsoft Defender for consumers. So I'll just make that clear. Do check out that video. There'll be lots of small businesses, of course, using products that are orientated towards consumers anyway. If you found this video useful, then I would love it if you gave it a thumbs up, because it really helps to get the video seen by more people on YouTube. But that's it for me for this week, and I'll see you next time.